There are as many entry points into a unit as there are designers of a unit. The goal is to complete a unit design no matter where you start. So you could start with a textbook, you could start with a lesson that you taught in a previous year, you can start really anywhere you want, as long as at the end all the considerations of the framework you're using are completed. So for us, in an Understanding by Design unit, that would be stages 1, 2, and 3, but you could begin in stage 3 as long as each other stage was completed by the end and before you started using this unit with students. So that said, there are a couple of ways that you might want to think about where to begin. So the essential questions that will guide this short video are: what is a big idea? What is an assessment verb? And how do teachers go about finding these? Where do they exist? And how do we put them to use in our planning in order to flush out the remainders of the stages? So if we look at Understanding by Design 2.0, the template that's used at NACA, we can see that the first two aspects of a curriculum that we're asked to identify are big ideas and assessment verbs. Now, again, you might start all the way at the bottom with the key learning instructions, and this might be the last part that you complete. It's somewhat illogical to begin a unit in that manner, but you could do so. So what are big ideas? These are the core nouns and adverbs that anchor a discipline. So if you wanted to think to yourself right now, what are the core ideas that anchor 7th grade science or 9th grade math or algebra or ELA or native lit or continental indigenous studies? What are those core ideas that everything is built around? These are usually represented by 1 or 2 words. If it's 2 words, those 2 words are held together by a conjunction, so you might have a big idea like cause and effect. Assessment verbs are cognitive verbs, and these are designed to cognitive verbs, and these are designed to give us a sense as teachers of what cognitive level our students should be thinking at when contending with the big ideas. So Bloom's taxonomy is the most notable place to find these cognitive verbs. And you can go on the internet and you can find all kinds of lists like these that deal with the various levels of cognition and then cognitive verbs that indicate this level of cognition. So at the bottom level, of course, is knowledge. And at the top level is some sort of synthesis, evaluation, and application. When we're talking about Understanding by Design, we're talking about students being able to, at the very least, apply their learned skills through transfer, use, application of their learned skills into a novel situation. So when we're talking about finding these assessment verbs and big ideas, there, again, are numerous places to find them, but one of the places that we can most readily find them is in the Common Core State Standards, or really any set of well-written standards that exist. So here's what you need to know. The Common Core State Standards, and again, any standards that are well-written, are built around big ideas or concepts and cognitive verbs or assessment verbs. So here's an example. This is a math Common Core State Standard at the 6th grade level. And so part of what I'd ask you to do as I move through this is to analyze what you think are the cognitive verbs and the big ideas that are supposed to guide a unit that a teacher would create around these standards. So cognitive verbs. I'm going to highlight these. 2 whole numbers less than or equal to. So use the distributive property to express a sum to a whole. Multiple. Okay, so it looks like the 2 major cognitive verbs are find and use. This is what the Common Core State Standards are telling us that students must be able to do with the big ideas. Now, what are those big ideas? So we're looking for nouns, and we're looking for adverbs. Whole numbers. Common multiples. As you can see, there are a whole bunch of them here. Use the distributive property. Oh, there's another cognitive verb for a math class. Sum of the whole. So Again, I'm just moving through here and I'm identifying the big ideas and the assessment verbs that the Common Core are telling me to focus my curriculum around. Again, well-written standards do this inherently. Here's a science standard from the next generation science standards. So we can do the same thing here. Develop a model to represent, so this might be a big idea, a model to represent the shapes and kinds of land. So there's a big idea, shapes and kinds of land in bodies of water in an area. So again, area, bodies of water, all big ideas. And lastly, here's a literacy standard, ELA from the core standards, Common Core State Standards. So students are supposed to determine, cognitive verb, the meaning of words and phrases as they are used in the text, including figurative and connotative meanings, analyze, that's one of those high-end cognitive verbs, the impact of specific word choices on meaning and tone, including words with multiple meanings or language that is particularly fresh, engaging, or beautiful. So meaning of words is a big idea. Phrases, big idea. Text is a big idea. Figurative and connotative meanings, big idea. And we could go through and find a few more. So here's one of the challenging things about finding big ideas to frame a unit is that we're ultimately going to choose one, maybe two big ideas to guide an entire unit of study for students. So if I look through this standard in particular, there are so many big ideas, I need to be able to articulate and find the most important central big idea to anchor a unit. How we anchor is ultimately how we frame for students, and that has a lot of implications on how we then dictate the rest of the learning and activities that go into the unit. So my job is to go to my Understanding by Design 2.0 template and choose the big idea that I'm going to use. And so maybe I'm going to choose figurative and connotative meanings to anchor an entire unit. Again, this is an instructor's discretion, but something that requires a designer, a teacher, to really know their content. You really have to know what the core big ideas are that are going to frame a unit. And then I'm going to copy and paste in those cognitive verbs, those assessment verbs that are going to dictate the assessments to come. So determine and analyze in the case of this ELA standard. And that is one way to begin this process of designing a unit, one entry point to a very complex interwoven UBD process.